Hi. Good morning. Welcome committee members, staff, guests and member of the public to the Environmental Sustainability Committee meeting. Please check that your devices and cell phones are either switched off or on silent while the meeting is in progress. Device interrupts the course of the meeting, will stop and wait for it to be muted, and we might ask you to sing at the same time. This meeting is being held in the supper room, Waihinga Centre, Martinborough Town Hall. It is being live streamed and will be available to view on Council's YouTube channel. For members of the public and guests not familiar with this space, the emergency exits are the door that you came in and the exit behind me. If we do need to evacuate, please use one of those exits and assemble outside by the playground, which is in that corner over there, and remain there until the building has been confirmed as clear. In the event we experience any unruly behaviour, we will adjourn until such time as is safe to reconvene, and members and staff will gather behind us here if the action becomes necessary, which is pretty unlikely. Okay, I invite you to join with me for the Karakia Timatanga, the opening Karakia. You'll find that on the agenda or on the wall up here. Kia Karakia Tātou. Kia hora te maono, kia whakapau namu te moana. Hei huara mā tātou I te rangi nei. Aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou I a tātou katoa, rei ai kia. Kia ora. We do have apologies from Mayor Wild and Councillor Rutini. Is there any further apologies? No. Councillor Taylor, will you move to accept the apologies?
I will accept the apologies. Thank you.
You'll move that?
Move that.
Yeah, and a seconder, Councillor Isaacs. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against, no. The motion is carried. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare? Okay, moving on. Thank you. Are there any acknowledgements or tributes? Okay, thank you. Moving on. There are no registrations for public participation, so observation only. Thank you. There are no items of urgent business because this is our first meeting. Just very exciting. I'm now going to actually, before we go on to the information reports, I'm going to bring forward item 9.1, the chairperson's report, environmental issues in Featherston. It is apt that the starting point for this first meeting of the Environmental Sustainability Committee has been the identification of a number of environmental concerns within the Featherston or South Wairarapa community relating to a range of issues. For example, air pollution from burning practices, unresolved water quality issues, soil contamination, plastic waste, and the condition of public amenities. In bringing this diversity of issues to the table, I recognise that our communities need to understand clearly the pathways through which they can report concerns and breaches and understand how such issues are resolved. It is vital to the well-being of Te Taiao, the natural environment, that we act together as kaitiakitanga guardians. Many of these matters involve Greater Wellington Regional Council and other stakeholders and highlight gaps in enforcement, monitoring and reporting. This report proposes a combination of advocacy to external agencies improved communication, education, and targeted local actions. And there was a recommendation for option 2 to be worked with, which is included in the recommendations that will follow. The advantages of targeted local actions is that there will be immediate visible improvements, strengthened partnerships, improved compliance and awareness, and this will require staff time and resource allocation. The recommendations also suggest working closely with our partners, strengthening our collaboration with them. This will take time as we seek to clarify pathways of reporting in order to ensure a timely response. In brief, I'll read out the headline statement from each section of the report, which I'm taking as read. It's in the agenda. And in doing so, note that there are issues and opportunities identified from each. Air pollution, air quality issues in the district are closely linked to private and commercial burning practices. These behaviours often occur intermittently over weekends or on public holidays and are influenced by seasonal activities. Water quality. Water quality management is primarily the responsibility of Greater Wellington. However, community observations play an important part in identifying emerging issues. The geographic spread of the Wairarapa does create challenges for timely monitoring and response. Soil contamination risks arise from both rural and urban practices, including agricultural, waste handling, industrial activity, and the improper disposal of hazardous material. Traffic noise and safety. Transport in the corridors increasingly serve mixed use purposes, with pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles sharing those spaces. Lake Domain. The Lake Domain Wairarapa Moana is a significant recreational and ecological asset that requires ongoing stewardship and coordinated management between agencies and the community. And I now invite any questions relating to this report from members, officers, and GW visitors.
Thanks, Chair, for that, and thanks for the paper. I suppose there are a range of sort of considerations and issues here which are region-wide. And so I suppose the question then becomes is, do we transition this from just a paper related to Featherston, or are these broader discussions which should take place from a regional context?
I think so, yeah.
Going forward.
Yes.
Because observation around some of the things like water and traffic noise, soil and waste lie across the region. So I think that's just the comment. Just on the air pollution one, I suppose it's hard to quantify whether practices, particularly on sort of large scale burning on rural land on a weekend, is that greater or lesser than the smog, I say, sitting across Featherston every morning and every evening as everyone lights up their wood fires. So there's an issue within that itself, which, you know, what are we trying to achieve around better practices? And obviously there's an economical issue here as well for that. So, you know, I'd like to hear from Greater Wellington in terms of what some of the things that they would take into consideration on this issue as well. Yep.
Thank you. Question. Have any further questions?
Just it struck me that some of these things is beyond just the Environment Committee as well. When you start getting into traffic and things, you say it's us in the Greater Wellington Regional Council, but it's also us and various other parts of us, and how you pull that together in a cohesive fashion, because it's not necessarily strictly and only the environmental side of things, like public toilets in the domain are not necessarily the Environment Committee, but needs to be processed to make sure if we're raising it from this perspective that it goes to the right place to be dealt with.
Yeah.
Yeah, the report, sort of, well done, Chair. Sort of brings us back to what, local government's core sort of issues, because at the moment, I mean, all the other things that are going on at such a high level are taking up most of our brain space at the moment, and it's quite refreshing sunny. Oh yeah, Lake Domain. Well,
Yeah, right.
that burn off last weekend or whatever it was. So it's good to just get the mosaic of what we're doing as a council, community boards, all the stakeholders that together, so to come back to very, very fundamental things. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, I just had one other question, probably again for the Wellington. In terms of the soil contaminants, and the mapping of where there are previous or former transfer stations and waste dumps and things like that, which we may not be aware of, and the rules that are set around them in terms of their ongoing maintenance, so that's not leaching into the soil, or how is that measured, and what are some of the considerations sort of as a council we need to take into account going forward on the longer term management issues that relate to this. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Any further questions or comments? Okay. Do I have a mover to receive the report environmental issues in Featherston? B, advocate to Greater Wellington Regional Council for 1, improved responsiveness and reporting on air and water pollution incidents. 2, consideration of strengthened urban fire restrictions. C, request reporting from Greater Wellington Regional Council to the Environmental Sustainability Committee on unresolved environmental incidents. D, support a joint public information campaign on 1, permitted burning practices, and 2, waste disposal and recycling options. E, strengthen collaboration with the Wairarapa Moana Statutory Board, DOC, iwi and Greater Wellington Regional Council. And F, request the Chief Executive to review local operational issues, including 1, lake domain maintenance and cleanup, 2, public facility maintenance, and 3, investigation of road safety and signage improvements where pedestrians and cyclists share high-speed roads. Do I have a mover?
Well,
You will move that route, Councillor Watson. Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
I think that.
You, Councillor Isaacs. Is there any debate?
Chair, just in terms of the recommendations, just on B, advocates as Greater Wellington Regional Council for 1, improved responsiveness. I think there's an intermediary step here before that. It's just to hear from Greater Wellington in terms of actions that may already be underway or in place around these range of issues before actually, as a committee, we take further steps to say how could we, or what's of interest to us, or how could we improve that, or what would we like Greater Wellington to do to bring about some of these sort of issues that are raised in the paper.
Perhaps we amend that to improve our understanding.
Yeah.
Would people be happy with that?
That'd be good.
Rephrase that.
But, some of the issues here, like permitted burning practices, are quite sensitive things which require some public.
Very sensitive.
Yep.
Point 1, improve our understanding on the reporting for air and water pollution incidences. That's satisfactory. Okay. Happy to proceed on that basis. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those against, no. Motion is carried. Okay. We are now having a verbal update from Greater Wellington Regional Council and a handful of slides, I believe. And I'd like to welcome Greater Wellington Regional Councillor Quentin Duffy, Chair of the Environment and Climate Committee, to the table and invite him to provide his update. You are Councillor Duffy.
Thank you very much, Chair, and councillors, to the public. As mentioned,
If we just find your slide.
yeah, Quentin Duffy, so Greater Wellington Regional Councillor. I represent Lower Hutt, one of the three councils. And my committee is an Environment and Climate Committee, so it's a combo committee this training. This is Pete Huggins, who's catchment manager for the Ruamahanga catchment, and Tash Styles, who's catchment manager for the
Wairarapa Coast.
Wairarapa Coast. Many catchments.
Yeah.
I've shaped a wee presentation for you. I guess a bit of a step back context for Greater Wellington and what it does, and then funneling down towards environment specific and then Wairarapa specific, and then into some of the particular issues that you're interested in discussing with us. Just to be straight up, that we won't be able to answer every question. There's a lot of staff in our environmental group and lots of experts across lots of different topics. So where we delve into something that's outside of our technical understanding or knowledge of the rules, we can certainly note that down, go away and come back. I'm happy to come back to the next meeting and carry on this conversation, because from my point of view in governance, the more we at regional governance can interact with local councils and work together to achieve better outcomes for the construction region. That's what we're here for.
Can I just pause? Rhina, are you able to hear what's been said?
Let's move closer.
Yeah, I'm just checking that you can.
Can you hear me now? Very good.
Yeah.
So I can live with as well.
That's room.
Thank you.
He's been joining the table.
We'll whiz through these slides because they will be largely familiar content for you, and you can always come back to particular things that caught your eye or you have questions about. But from our perspective as Greater Wellington Regional Council, we've got, and we sign an oath as councillors to represent to the best of our abilities the whole of the region, and that's I guess that's actually impressed me as a councillor, and how we work as a governance team is we are constantly making decisions that affect particular districts and cities in the region, but there's always a mindset of what's best for the region, and there's no actual one city or district that dominates the voting around the table. So while there's advocacy and we all have our passions and interests in our own constituencies, we as a team try to make the best allocation of resources and arrangements for the region, which is diverse. And when we get into the environmental work, you will see the diversity place to place, the diversity between the different activities. Next slide, please, Amy. Thank you. Overall, part of the diversity is our activities, mainly span those 4 areas. Now, this was last year, so the yellow bit has since vanished. That was bulk water supply that we used to be responsible for. That is now the responsibility of Te Akiwai, our new CCO running water services in the metropolitan city. So you can ignore the yellows, but you can see in terms of spend, Metlink, public transport, all those buses and trains and ferries cost a lot. And in terms of funding sources, there's a big user charge one, because of course there's all the fares for public transport. There's quite a lot of Crown contribution there as well as rates. So quite a mix across the different activities that Regional Council is responsible for. Next slide, please, Anne. Narrowing down to the environment, which is your mandate as a committee. To my mind, it's very much, it's not Greater Wellington doing things for everyone or imposing things on. There are obviously rules and regulations as part of the mix of work we do, but it's a lot of the gains and outcomes are to be made through working with others, with mana whenua, with community groups, with territorial authorities. And because it's a big area, 800,000 hectares of land, very diverse from Wairarapa through to inner city Wellington. We've got that mix of regional parks as well as a lot of conservation, Department of Conservation land within the region that we don't look after, but as part of our land mix. All the rivers, streams, lakes, and an almost equal area of coastal marine area that we have limited responsibility for, but as part of the region's environment. Next slide, please. Now, this is a terrible slide, isn't it? Who could possibly read that and understand it? However, let me try. So the top row is the 3 overarching sort of objectives from our long-term plan at the moment. And thriving environment is a key part of that, but it's a diverse, it's not just water quality or air quality. It's also about Indigenous biodiversity, about restraining erosion on farms through, pole planting and so on. It's a whole range of activities, and then that relates to some of the other aspects like harbour navigation as one of our responsibilities. And I guess that comes back to the history of regional council in about 1980s, an eclectic mix of regional sort of responsibilities, catchment boards and harbour masters was sort of pulled together under an umbrella organisation, and then that formalised through the Local Government Act reforms in 89, was it? And that's where Greater Wellington comes from. Underneath those other 2 rows are more to do with how our environment group that Pete and Tash work within translate those objectives, governance objectives, I guess, of council into particular longer term and service outcomes and priorities for our work. So I won't go into all those words. If there was anything that caught your eye when you read them, please ask a question about that, and we'll come back to it.
I suppose the main point, Quentin, is about within it, there are conflicts, and how do you balance side is kind of trade-offs is the important element. Yeah.
And even within one particular aspect of their environment, there'll be lots of different values at play. For example, and as you know, well known, river management.
Yes.
There's flood protection and neighbouring landowner needs. There's also mana whenua aspirations. There's the Environmental and Resource Management Act sort of requirements for ecological health, and we're in the role of trying to make the best decisions and management outcomes for as much of that as possible. And that can involve changing past practices. It can involve doing things that we've done for a long time better. It's mixed, but yes, there are inherently trade-offs even within environment, not just thinking of environment versus economy, which is a bit of a false dichotomy, but even within. And one that you, Chair, we've discussed in terms of the air quality. There's public health trade-offs with wood burners.
And heat house.
Fewer wood burners, the less smog in the air overnight, but the more colder houses perhaps, and children growing up in damper, cold environments. So there's trade-offs within any of these.
And just to say, you might be covering it, and I'll wait till you do, but the changes from the government in terms of the RMA and how that overlay comes into play here, because I'm not sure we've got our heads around that as yet. Yeah.
And we're still getting it. And I guess the fundamental issue is we as councils, just like you, are required to act under current law. And so we have to carry on doing what we do under what Parliament has mandated. Right now, with also an eye for the fact that the government has an intention to change that, and it becomes more certain and solid as to what that might look like. But of course, we have a general election, so the amount of certainty as to what the new planning system looks like is always going to be inherently uncertain until it is actually enacted and it's a degree of cross-party. So we're in that same boat as you are in terms of trying to do our best in that next environment of the rules of today versus what's possibly coming. Just to highlight one in here, because my committee is responsible for environment and climate, and the regional resilience is a key part of that. And so river management is not just an environmental thing, it's also thinking about resilience of infrastructure and land use over time, and the impact of climate change and adapting to increased rainfall And then the flip side of that, there'll be less rainfall and more winds in summer, which bring droughts. And so we have combined our environment and climate work much more this triennium into this committee because they do intertwine quite heavily. It's hard to talk about one without the other. Forgotten what slide I was going to hand over to you for a change in course, but we'll go to the next one. A few more.
Let's continue.
This was from a report to our council at the end of last triennium to say, so what did we actually do and achieve and over the last triennium? So I just threw that in to see if it might interest you in particular aspects. I won't read through it, of course, but what comes through is the diversity of activity, from planting to killing things to chasing boaties around the harbour to consents and enforcement actions, and there's a whole, and partnerships, of course, a whole range of things in there. So if there was anything that in that slide that caught your eye, ask me a question either now or further on.
So from my perspective, if I could, just in terms of the restoration, say, and particularly pest control. So from a trends perspective, is it going up, or is it staying level, or is it going down over the 5 years?
Do you mean the level of activity?
Yes. Yeah, the level of activity.
Yeah. So certainly in the last financial year, there's been a big increase in our pest control activity, and that's because council made a deliberate decision in the LTP 2024 to invest more in that area, with strong community advocacy for that. And it's there's a diversity within that. There's sort of predator-free Wellington type projects. There's rabbit control on pastoral land. There's regional parks work where if you plant new native trees, you then got to actually kill the hares and rabbits that will go and destroy your investment. There's predator control. There's a mix in there.
Significant increase on Wairarapa Moana. So
Okay, yes, significant around Wairarapa Moana and around Pukaha, Mount Bruce, where it's not a fence sanctuary so much. So the perimeter pest control is really important to control ferrets and so on.
Will you be expanding at all on the relationship around Wairarapa Moana?
Yes, I'll leave that to Pete. So we'll flip to the next one, but feel free to come back to any of those aspects. I think this is our current year sort of where things are at. So there's some colour coding there. We've got those 10-year outcomes for our environment group to try and focus and be strategic about activity. Yellow's the sort of business functions that support this, not to be underestimated, because you've got to have good systems, and officers undertaking, organising bulldozers or undertaking tree planting need to have that support for procurement and to make these things work. You've got those different colours there across sort of more recreation and harbour safety, the more environmental work, and then the resilience, including flood work. And you can see quite a difference between where the money goes and where the staff is, and that's to do with capacity requirements around staff, contractors, where you don't have a big fleet of massive bulldozers and cranes and things. So when we're doing those sort of infrastructural or major works, we are reliant on contractors. In other areas of the environment group, we have larger teams of highly skilled staff, particularly in pest control and planning and so on. So there's a mix of there where people and money is allocated to try and achieve those focus areas and outcomes of enhancing, protecting things and planning for the future. Just a quick note on the planning for the future there, you can see in the middle focus area, future of natural resource plan changes. We've had a whaitua program over many years to work with communities and territorial authorities in mana whenua to create a clarity of strategic objectives for improving water quality and water take allocations and so on. And we've been working through implementing that, but of course the government has come along with a planned stop in advance of new planning legislation. So in terms of we can't really implement the regulatory side of it, the rules and the objectives that might go in the plans at the moment. So those are on pause. So some of that resource has been reallocated to things that we can do in the current political and governance environment. We'll flip to the next slide because otherwise I'll.
Just one simple question there, Doc. In terms of dead birds washing up in Carterton and on the beach for Tony, that remains primarily the responsibility of Doc as opposed to Lambton?
No, it's actually your responsibility too. So MPI has the primary responsibility for the coordination and the public messaging.
Yeah.
So we're all sort of pushing through the messages from MPI on what to do when you see this. But each landowner has responsibility for how they, cleaning up dead birds, for example, responding to that. So for us, there's a focus on regional parks, river corridors, for territorial authorities. If it's on a sports ground, we're not going to come and clean it up for you. There's no dock coming into the helicopter to clean it up. It's in your court.
Yep.
And that's challenging for the public because the
They don't know.
public sort of just want it dealt with and are worried about it naturally and are worried about what might happen next. And are the birds all going to start falling out of the sky? And what about endangered birds at Pukaha, Mount Bruce and Wairau, and our poultry farmers? And there's a lot of uncertainty here. We have some clues from, just to diverge slightly on bird flu because it is very topical, we have clues from how it has rolled through other countries and affected seabird populations and poultry economy and so on. But in this, New Zealand is a land of birds and we have been set a lot of unique bird species and we don't really know how bird flu is going to impact here yet.
So I suppose the question I was also coming to was, in fact, we have a very long coastline for which responsibility probably is mixed. Yeah.
Yes.
So how are we going to deal with
The
that?
dead birds will simply, nature will take its course and some other birds will come and meet them and get bird flu, sadly.
We might.
However, we will all be responding to public. And MPI is promoting their own hotline number and reporting 3 or more dead birds to them, and then they can triage that to South Wai, to Greater Wellington, to DOT. No doubt there'll be some messiness around that because it is populations that is confusing for the public. And sorry, question over there.
Sorry, just to speak to Councillor Taylor, we're working with the bylaws team. They're doing some signage and comms, and we're working with our open spaces team to manage that on our land areas as well. So members of work based on MPI guidelines, protection.
Thank you. We might continue.
And from what I've seen, agencies are working hard to share information, work together and coordinate to make sure that there's not sort of different messaging from different agencies, which is very confusing for the public. Let's flip to the next slide. And I think I'm hopefully soon handing over to my staff here. Oh, this was to just give you a flavour of the partnership and relationship thing is so important to get anything done. And to have it sustainable and follow through. And any environmental work, it's not like clicking fingers, throwing some money at something and that solves it for the next 20 years. It actually usually involves ongoing work, and that is therefore key for with partnerships and key for that. So that just gives you a flavour of some of the projects across that, particularly Tash and Pete's teams around catchment are coordinating and linking with. And we can touch on specific ones if we like, but I think my next slide is a chance for me to take a breather and Pete do the talking. Almost. That's some more examples. Yeah, take over, Pete and Tash. You're the catchment team, and these are some.
Yeah, I might explain this one. It's probably hard to read because it's small, but I suppose that on that previous slide you saw the 5 super catchments across the region, and this sort of touches on our earlier slides around what the environment group's about. So our focus is to be really outcomes focused, and we're doing that by catchment. So it's really important for us as an organisation that we used to deliver sort of single activities, our flood protection, our biosecurity, our land management, our biodiversity. And obviously we still deliver those activities, but it's actually really important that we deliver those things together for particular outcomes. And we see the combination of those services at place is actually what makes the difference. Not necessarily assuming that, you just do flood protection for a particular purpose and you do another activity for another purpose. These things are actually connected, and it depends on, what communities, our mana whenua, where in the catchment that you're delivering that thing, that combination of services has to change. So what you can sort of see there is some examples of us working at place, and it's really thinking about what is the appropriate scale for us to work at? We like to, Pete and I are representing those super catchments, but it's really about, we work at the scale that we need to work at. So that might be at the sub-catchment scale, it might be at a farm scale, it might be bigger than that, it might be a combination of it, might be across South Wairarapa and CDC, or everything in between. So really it's our jobs to be trying to pull those things together. And, across this, we've got our Whaitua program. So we've got the Ruamahanga Whaitua program already completed. The Wairarapa Coast Whaitua is in development, but as Quentin said, that regulatory part of that's sort of on hold until we get what regulations are actually for that. But that's what we're trying to do, is how do we deliver all of these services in the right way to a particular part of the region. And, you can see when you look at those points under each catchment, they are different and they need to be different because the communities are different and geographically they're different and just the environment and everything is different. So it's not that we just do random stuff everywhere. We are trying to be more and more deliberate about how we deliver those services at place particular outcomes.
Which can mean prioritising, because we can't do everything everywhere.
Does mean prioritizing.
Excuse me for a second, please. The noise next door, that's my wife doing the line dance class. I just want to go over and tell her to shut.
Go to the next slide. So in this slide, this is our last slide, so you can ask us as many questions as you like, but we just wanted to sort of list some of the Wairarapa priorities, and we can talk one specifically for South Wairarapa. But really our key point is that there's obviously a range of priorities for the Wairarapa, things like that our Whaitua processes of how we work together for water quality and quantity is obviously important to us, how we deliver for our flood resilience, and that's looking after our assets, but also thinking about flood resilience in that wider context. It's not just about those assets, it's about those communities around it, the impacts of climate change, but it's all the other stuff that Greater Wellington does, our pest management. An example of that is we've got our regional predator control program, and so that has been heavily focused in the north of the Wairarapa for possum control, with the exit of osprey and changes of possum populations. That's really been moved now to be more focused around the south and more CDC. So we have to, we respond to what we need to. So, but the combination of that is important. So how we deliver pest control, how that's connected to our big planting programs for erosion control, that has to be planned and delivered together. So that's what we're sort of focusing on across all of these things.
Yes, do you think there's more we could be doing to support the Wairarapa Minor Statutory Board on outcomes? Because we attend those meetings and we're working as collaboratively as we can, but there's on issues like the road and for example there we've asked, do you want that remediated, and we haven't been able to get an answer on stuff like that because it rests on wider decisions that need to be taken on the whole environment, and how that is to be planned and consulted, and so these single items can sometimes be delayed while the bigger picture comes into focus, and that's taken quite a long time. It's quite a big thing to chew on. Do you feel as if there's more we could be doing as a team to support the board to be successful?
It's probably, we could always do more,
Yeah.
but I'll let Pete answer that.
Yes, I mean, I think we would welcome perhaps more ongoing collaboration between the agencies. So currently we have a very solid working relationship between Greater Wellington and DOC on asset management in the reserves. And I've recently met with your GIS team and your roading team to identify roads and assets in the Wairarapa reserves so that we can get them all in one place and actually go through them in a stepwise fashion. So more of that would be great. I think a lot can be done just through that management without having to wait actually for big decisions. I think there are a lot of practical things we can do. So yeah, we'll just welcome that ongoing push for staff to engage when they're requested to and we, you know, collaborate. We don't want to, yeah.
We're certainly really keen
Yeah.
to do that,
Right.
to map the assets, to understand, because it's quite a lot of complexity around that area in terms of ownership and active management and sort of future design. So, but at the same time, we don't want to stymie or stall things that we could be doing. And so we're really keen to collaborate more. And so we should talk more about that.
Yeah, and we had I think a question from Councillor Watson about whether we were going to continue to invest in the reserves with the board, and absolutely the commitment from Greater Wellington currently is to continue to fund all the work that we've been previously doing.
Yeah.
And in fact, we've invested even more after the MFE. We had crowdfunding and that way we've reinvested. I think inviting the new general manager for the board to a meeting like this would be useful as well. So PJ Devonshire is invited by the board, and just in terms of building that relationship and him understanding you guys understanding where the board's at. And we'd be happy to sit in on that as well. By Doc even. You know,
Why not?
you know?
Team sport.
Hit sport, yeah.
I think your question also speaks to the tension we will always have between the more immediate needs of today and the longer term, and the Lower Valley development scheme, and the need to review that and perhaps change some things to make it fit for the future is one of those. It's going to take quite a few years to build a strategy around that. So that South Water, in terms of river stuff, South Water is quite different to our other big caches that we manage. They tend to have flood management plans or some sort of strategic document. So the Pioneer, for example, has got a living plan. South Water was quite different. It was a Crown think big type project that Greater Wellington has inherited, and we just sort of manage it, but there's no overarching strategy or direction for it, and a wide range of different values and interests at play. People would like this, other people would like that, and they don't always marry up. And times have changed and the climate is changing. So there's a review underway, and Pete's leading into what's our strategy for the future for flood protection and for management of the scheme and land use and so on. But that's not going to help resolve the flooding issues of the Turanganui Bridge from a few weeks ago. Or, you know, we've got to operate in today's world and in that planning for the future world. And I think that's always going to be challenging, because the public tends to want action today to fix their problem, rightly. And we also have to have that longer term.
And so if I may as well, and I'm not sure how much longer we've got, there's similar things to sort of the water quality issue. You know, if people are pouring paint into a drain or illegally dumping next to a waterway, and we've got acute water quality issues, that's definitely something to report to the pollution hotline, and we can do community education to encourage people. The long-term trends in water quality are more tied to things like land use, drainage, those sorts of things, infrastructure, the wastewater treatment, all that sort of stuff. And we still need to work at sort of both timeframes. And on those latter ones, we really need to work with Southwide, because it's a joint effort. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's great. I think we've got two really clear points that we can collaborate on in the future, as well as all the other minor things. But that's two significant things, getting PJ and Doc to a meeting. Yeah.
Chair, can I just add another point of collaboration to it? It comes back to the what government's asked us to focus on recently, and relates to the point you raised about resilience going forward. And of course, what government has spoken about is the whole issue of affordability around this. But I think it beholds us to be sort of very joined up with Greater Wellington in terms of addressing that issue. Because outside of the affordability thing, there is a whole lot of other things which we need to start to have conversations about with government, with landowners on future management of land, on coastal dwellings, on issues such as management retreat, all those sorts of things where we're just not focused on currently, and they have big costs.
Chair, just make one more that sort of leads from the hotline that you mentioned. So that's a good number to promote to your constituents if they see pollution or are worried about an environmental issue or think there's non-compliance with resource consents or something going on. The 0800 496 is a good place for them to talk to someone in our call centre and have a conversation and jot down some information, and then that goes to our compliance team. So we have a dedicated team within Greater Wellington responsible for compliance, monitoring and enforcement of the rules, basically, be that the rules of the plan or particular consents. And they're somewhat separated from the rest of us because councillors politically don't want to be meddling in that. It's like the police, you keep them separate from politicians. And also sometimes Greater Wellington is the holder of a consent and we need to investigate ourselves for our own compliance. So this team, we have a compliance monitoring enforcement policy, which sets out how we go about doing that work. That's our sort of governance input to guide staff, but they are independent in their decisions. And a key part of it is what's called the 4 E's, where it's not about jumping straight to waving a stick in an enforcement. Just because there's a rule and potential non-compliance doesn't mean you go and wax them. You know, that's corporal punishment days. That's one of the E's, if you need it. But our team would start with education, and that includes before the fact. So promoting wise use of wood burners, for example, is about educating the public on how to minimise impacts on the environment or to be compliant. Where an issue is reported, then they'll usually, so when someone phones the hotline, for example, the next E is engagement, where staff will visit, have a chat to, do you appreciate what might be going on, sort of bit of a gauge on, is there something non-compliant here, or and then the third E in the middle there is enabled. So often, generally, people want to follow the rules and resource consent holders want to be in line with their conditions because there's consequences if they don't, but sometimes they need a little bit of assistance. And so Greater Wellington can use its sort of wealth of resource across its teams to assist people to follow the rules. And then failing that, if there's serial non-compliance, then you go into the enforcement sort of things, which can be infringements and abatements, even to the extreme of court action enforcement, which we have a couple on the go in other ways. So the following up of complaints about things or concerns about pollution has this process, and it's a sliding scale of intervention.
That's helpful to understand. A question about that. Do you provide a report? Is there a report available on, obviously not names and details, you know, a high level report on the number of incidences and the type of incidences that are managed in the South Wairarapa or the Wairarapa more broadly, with some location details, so you can kind of understand what is happening and what the trends might be over time?
I have seen some sort of those reports more at a regional level of what types of things are being reported and what's going on. The compliance officers will be keeping records behind the scenes about how they've responded to things, and that can be requested, albeit privacy and needs to be protected. I haven't seen it broken down by district, but we could easily get that from.
When you say regional, you mean Wairarapa regional, or do you mean the whole regional?
Generally, yeah.
Oh, right.
I can't remember if I've seen it broken down by, I mean, over here it's much more pastoral agriculture related activities, wood burners and so on. In the city, it'll be different things.
But we definitely could give those reports,
But we-
because if someone responds in the weekend they're on call, they're Wairarapa staff responding, it's not someone from Wellington.
So we can access that information, and I would like to see from our team a bit more of a sharing of how we undertake that compliance role, and a sort of closing the loop. I've reported many things myself over the years, and I have found it frustrating when you go to the effort of taking photos and reporting and sending it through, and then you never hear anything back. You wonder, was I ignored? Now, the chances are it was investigated and appropriate actions were taken. And there's a limitation on how much information could be shared back because of privacy and so on. But I think there's a bit more closing of the loop that we can do, because sometimes Greater Wellington's, the ears and eyes are the public, not staff. we're not everywhere to see everything, and we do rely on us peer monitoring of us all. Sometimes that verges on the point of people complaining religiously about their own neighbour. That gets being not very helpful. But more generally, especially groups, community groups, can really understand their catchments or their places and know when something's out of kilter, and can be very quick to report that and allow a timely intervention. Because the sooner investigation staff can visit a site and see what's going on, the more clues there are as to exactly what's happened and why and how, and then work with the cause of that too. So
I
feel
think
free to request through me,
Yes.
Chair, any particular things, and our team can, I'm sure, pull together information to assist your picture of the district.
that would be really helpful. Well, thank you so much for a super thorough report. It's been really interesting and to get an insight into the breadth of work that you're doing. And as Rob pointed out, there's quite a few significant topics in there that I think we might be able to kind of return to and gauge a better understanding on, but I will leave those for another day.
And if you
Something else?
wider up a unitary, you might have to do more yourself. So
Be more,
Well, to be more joined up, put it that way. Is it possible to get the slides?
Need them. Sorry. Could be-
Yes, Amy has.
Thank you very much. Yep, they're very useful.
yeah, what was the first D?
Educate.
Educated.
I mean,
Please don't pour paint down the drain. It's not good for the fish.
Yeah,
That sort of thing.
perfectly logical for ease.
I mean, I think your point about closing the loop is about communication, and that people feel, even I feel it myself, you know, you put an antenna report up and you're like, okay. And now we're getting emails about that. So you feel like your observation has been taken note of, and yeah. Rainer.
Sorry, I haven't booked in any time, but would you accept one sentence from me or just a comment about things?
I'd accept one sentence from you, yes.
While I was waiting for this meeting, I talked to a guy out there from City Care. And I've met him by the lake when we both together cleaned up the plastic tubing that was in the grass along the shore.
Yeah.
And that was about, I don't know, 50 or 80 meters. And it turned out to be ducting for electric cables. And Mandy DeRuta by then. And she was interested in, particularly, you said in the email you would get perhaps police informed about that. And I just spoke to the man, the same man I met at the lake. He was out here and he said he'd been back to the lake and he found more of this material, this time not only black, but blue and other colors, obviously the inside. And he said it's definitely stuff that the railways are using along the track. So this is just a little bit of information for everybody. For me, it was pollution because it was lying on the shore. But it turns out to probably be evidence for a criminal act.
Okay, well, that's significant. Thank you, Rainer, for reporting that. We'll take that on board. Yeah. I think I meant to do something now. Let me just catch up with myself.
One more wee note, we currently have a by-election in play for wider upper region. So we are sorely missing Councillor Adrian Staples, who was a fabulous representative for wider upper region. And, you know, I can come over to these meetings, but I can't fill Adrian's shoes, and we have a by-election process. So please promote to everyone that to understand, research the candidates, and that papers I think are out soon. So that's an important part of Wairarapa being part of the regional picture that we're trying our best to fill as councillors who aren't from here, but that's key step.
And people are paying much more attention to regional concerns at the moment. Witness the large number of very capable candidates that have come forward for this.
Excellent point. But while we're on that, thank you for your interest in the work that we're doing here, and for meeting and supporting me and bringing these issues to the table.
Thank you to you and Councillor Watson for coming over to our recent committee meeting. It's really good.
Yeah,
that's
great.
We have another one in August if any of you guys.
In my diary. So we'll move on. Thank you, Councillor Duffy and officers. Do I have a mover to receive the verbal update from Greater Wellington Regional Council report? Thank you, councillor Isaacs. And do I have a seconder? Thank you, councillor Watson. All those in favour, please say aye.
Right.
Anyone against? No, motion is carried. Okay, we are now considering item 8.2, the waste minimisation report. And I welcome Mandy to the table. And Melissa, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So my colleague Mandy has prepared this initial information report outlining the waste minimisation plan, which is part of our resource recovery and waste portfolio and delivered jointly with 8 councils across the Wellington region. And the plan provides a coordinated approach to waste minimisation and resource recovery with regional goals, targets and actions which are developed to reduce waste, landfill and harm to the environment. And I'll take the report as read, but just to point out, you'll note our key current targets in the report. Appendix 1 shows our regional actions and updates towards delivery with the lead council priority and the delivery RAG noted. Appendix 2 is our trend data for waste diverted from landfill through recycling, reusing, composting initiatives, etc. Our target for this is to reach 30% by 2030. Just to note, there are challenges around reporting on this as we can only gather data on the waste handled by our contractors. So it doesn't include private collections. So just being mindful when we're looking at that any downward trends may not necessarily reflect the amount of waste which is actually being diverted, just more people moving to private collections. And Appendix 3 is our more localised action plan delivered with our colleagues at Masterton and Carterton. As I noted, I'll take the report as read, but if you have any questions or comments to take forward for our future reporting, Mandy is probably your best bet for answering questions, but we'll take that your feedback.
Yeah.
Thank you, Melissa. So do you have any questions? I have some, but I'll let other people go first.
I have some questions around Appendix 3. Quite handy if there was some more measures, for example, on the encouraging circular economy principles at community level. There's talks about videos and various other bits and pieces. And in order for things to change, people have got to use these things. And I was just wondering whether you could dig some stats out of the website to see how many people actually are using the resources or looking at the video and things, just to understand whether it's
Yes. The
uptake is.
refuse and recycling page on the website is the mostly visited
Right.
page on our council website. I'm aware of that. I'm just not sure of individual stats, but I can find out.
Just be interesting as a flavour of kind of what people doing or not. Yeah.
Chair, if I could ask, the percentages in terms of reducing waste to landfill, 10% to 27, 30% by that, does that take into account the capacity of the current transfer stations to absorb that waste? Or are we facing issues in terms, within South Wairarapa, of existing transfer stations and needing to be replaced overall? Double question, really. Yeah.
Kind of is what directly goes to landfill. So our waste goes up to Bonnie Glen.
Yeah.
Or Martinborough. We are just doing a report with Tonkin and Taylor on Martinborough Station. And like infrastructure and investment needed for the future to allow us to cope with waste coming in.
Are you able to comment on sort of trends there, what you might be seeing?
I think we just had a swap carried out, which is the solid waste and a list of report. That will give us a breakdown of types of waste that we're producing within Wairarapa. So from curbside and what comes into our transfer stations. So once that's finalised, I think from initial reports is 47% would be organic waste. And then 30% would be timber. But the trend currently, we're not trending downwards with waste to landfill. If anything, we're probably going up. Even though recycling is increasing, we're still producing more waste.
Per head sort of territory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Per household or whatever.
Is that impact of consumerism
Yeah, it's just all these
on lives? Yes.
just the way we did, and I think,
Will there become a point with that capacity, I say, the Martinborough transfer station is exhausted, correct?
yes, we're probably at where we currently are now. We're probably at capacity with visitor numbers and the amount of space we have to take to landfill. But as soon as it reaches at like 30 tonne, we take 30 tonne out to Bonnie Glen. So it just means it'll be emptied more often. But the new Tongan Taylor plan will be to extend the landfill area and provide a cover. So we can obviously take more waste in. But
And it's the cost of that that'll drive a lot of the change, because the cost per tonne is just increasing exponentially, as well as the capacity constraint.
Yep. And just in relation to Bonnie Glen, I think we've spoken about this before about, there's some decision to be made then by them. Has there been any update recently on what their thinking is in terms of closing that?
no, it's still got capacity for another 30 years.
30 years. Yep.
Parua and Southern will be closing. Parua is closing, I think, next year. And Parua is closing next year, and thus Southern will close in 2030. We're just doing a regional report or project on what happens when those two landfills close, and obviously the impact it'll have on Silverstream and Bonnie Glen, and kind of what we do once all those landfills have reached capacity. So we're just currently doing a report on that as one of our regional projects.
Thanks for that.
So where is the, I forgot on the words to describe it, like the product stewardship schemes, I mean, is that going to gain some traction? I know tyres is cab off the rank. I think next is agricultural.
Yes, government
waste.
still progressing that, but you got to bear in mind tyre waste took 30 years to come into play. So they started 30 years ago to get tyres on project stewardship schemes. So ag recovery and plastics will be next, and refrigerants is also on the table, but time and depending what happens with the elections.
Right.
What happens with that?
And of course, organics waste came off,
Yes.
which was unfortunate because it's a really significant contributor to our waste. So
Waste is organic.
it's the importance of looking at local solutions and what we can do, which I will come back to. So I have a couple of questions. I'll just at the beginning of your report. Thank you for that. Waste management and emergencies. Obviously, this is kind of top of mind and has been moved up, I think, to high priority. How is that going for you locally there? And I know you'll probably be addressing this through the infrastructure committee, but
we are waiting for, I think Richard Mole is working on our plan for the Wairarapa. So I think we've just highlighted areas that would be possible to put temporary storage of waste in an event. And then it goes to, I think, Simon Taylor, and then goes to iwi for them to have a look at. And then once that's in place, we can get the rest of the report going. But Richard Mole's also just updating the debris disposal plan. So we have a debris disposal plan. So in the event of an earthquake, he calculates how much waste we typically generate within South Wairarapa.
right.
So then we can calculate where it would need to go, or what steps we need to put in place to manage that waste.
Right. And is it like vegetative debris kind of thing,
Yeah.
or mixed,
Building.
like really mixed?
Vehicles, anything really.
Oh, okay, all right. Makes it a bit messier, doesn't it? Okay, thanks for that. I just wondered when curbside standardisation occurred, because you mentioned that in one of these
2023 that came in.
trends, and perhaps if we could have a marker on the graph so we know
Yeah.
for future reference, so I don't have to ask it every single time. That'd be great. And the audit that you just mentioned on the bags and the organics and the solid waste and that, was that the Ministry of Environment one that's just been done?
No, we did a private one. We need to do one every 6 years to allow us to set our baseline targets for our WMP. I don't think Southwide had one done since 2011.
Right.
So yeah, it's just to see if the trend, and that way we can see then if we're meeting our targets, whether the trends change over time. So, and it's completed.
And when's that? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I have a personal item.
We're probably the one.
bag. Indeed. And when will we see the report from that?
The lady is away now, so she doesn't think the final report will be ready till October.
Okay, all right, good to know. Thank you. It's been asked. The thing that kind of piqued my interest, having gone to the waste minimisation conference and seen the fabulous safe battery recycling containers there, and also a separate presentation on that about the risk of increasing risk of batteries in terms of fire risk in households and in landfills, is can we expand our battery recycling with safe battery containers at supermarkets and libraries?
Also, there will be a cost. Obviously, it's quite a high cost to have the special buckets put in supermarkets and the libraries. And I would have to discuss it with FENS because they're not particularly happy if you have too many.
Yeah.
Obviously, areas where there's a large amount of batteries. So, which is why we have it at the transfer station, because the risk, if there's a fire, there's less risk damage to households. But I could look into that and get some costs.
I think that would be useful to explore, and you know, maybe there's probably a lot of detail in that and an internal process of how we can. I mean, I went to the library. I don't want to dog. No, I won't dog the librarian. But you know, obviously they're collecting them in a little box. But and I'm collecting them in a little box. And you know, everyone's got these little systems that they're collecting them in, which is probably not ideal. Whereas if it's more easily available to get rid of them more quickly, and then from that point they can go more quickly to your safer place at the transfer station.
We always say to tape them. That's obviously the risk. If they're not taped, the 9-volt ones can spark off each other. They're probably the main ones. But the risk of fire is if they get squashed. So when they get squashed in the refuse truck, that's kind of what sparks.
Okay.
If they get squashed at the landfill, like with a digger or something, just sitting there, they're pretty unlikely to catch unless it's a 9-volt, which is the high
Yeah,
resistance.
sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So then how do we, I didn't know that. So how do we educate people more on this and getting people to do it? Yeah. Anyway, that would be great to be able to have that. Next steps report which we talked about. Just want to say all the work on your updated event waste management area looks good, providing people with some tools for that. So yeah, I think that was my questions for the moment.
I just ask one question.
Okay.
In the report, so in addition to the targets that you noted, you also indicated that there's a Wairarapa joint action plan. Are those targets within the plan? And so that plan overall is next to be updated in 2029.
Yes.
Yep.
Probably just actually useful to mention while we're all around the table that Mandy and the other officers, there's one officer in each council, have set up a kind of cross-council meeting that, you know, the chairs that go to the Greater Wellington Waste Minimisation meetings and the deputies and anyone can go to. I've invited Kahununu to that, as I said I would. So they're going to happen twice a year, and that's a way of just, because the officers all work together, but it's a way of those councillors, elected members, being informed and educated about that on a more regular basis. So great to have your report at the meeting, Mandy.
Take it on practically. We live rurally, so we deal with their rubbish and big wheelie bins and all the recycling, and we go to Cardiff mostly because it's kind of closer to where we are. And those guys are hell of an efficient. Yeah, there's a place to go that's organised, sorted. It used to be kind of pretty average, but the current crew there are amazing. So I just sort of pass that on somebody if it fits in the system, because and I can't compare to Mark Brooks, who don't come over here, but it's, yeah, the improvement over time is just staggering.
Cool. That's good.
Collie, you might have to try the Martinvale one and then give us your feedback.
Good.
Yeah.
That's really a bit costed.
Mandy, is there anything you want to add?
No, don't.
Okay, all right. Do I have a mover to receive the waste minimisation report?
That, Chair.
You, Councillor Taylor. Do I have a seconder?
Okay.
Pick one.
Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Says no, the motion is carried.
Good report, thank you.
Thank you so much. We are now considering item 8.3, a presentation for Love Food, Hate Waste.
Like a novel.
It's, it sounds like an awful could be.
That's why I had pigs.
And this is particularly of interest because when we think about how much organic waste we have in our bags, it's really important to think about programs that support the diversion of that, and that includes, you know, the best food waste possible, composting, all those sorts of things. So I'd like to welcome, sorry about my back, Sophie. I'd like to welcome Sophie to the meeting, and we look forward to your presentation, Sophie. Thank you. Sophie, Valley Future, introduce yourself.
Awesome, thank you. Kia ora koutou. I'm Sophie Walland. I'm the Program Manager for Love Food, Hate Waste New Zealand. And yeah, really grateful to have the opportunity to speak with you all today. So yeah, I'd like to thank you very much for the invite, and happy to take, I've got a fair few slides to get through today. I'll power through, but I'm happy to take questions as we go, or save them from the end. Quite keen to keep this you know, fairly informal and you know, address anything you'd like to throughout the presentation. I guess the key point I hope you take away is that Love Food Hate Waste is not just a brand, or it's not just a license that's available to South Wairarapa District Council, but it really gives you access to an established national behaviour change program that can be used locally, without you guys having to develop and maintain your own household food waste program. So yeah, really fantastic opportunity. So for those that may not be familiar, Love Food Hate Waste is an internationally recognised program that now operates across 8 countries. Here in Aotearoa, the program has been delivered by Wastemans for the past 10 years. And our role is really to help households waste less food by making the advice really clear, usable and achievable. So we create campaigns and tools that help people plan meals, store food correctly, understand use by labels and use leftovers, and really get more value from the food that they buy. So in doing that, we're really addressing 2 connected issues, keeping organic material out of landfill, which is super important for you guys, but also helping households save money and make their food go further. So the program works really well because it combines national scale with local trust and delivery. So over the past 3 years, we've been supported by 51 councils across Aotearoa, with an additional boost of funding from the Ministry for the Environment. And this collective model allows us to develop higher quality campaigns and tools, really valuable research and resources that most councils couldn't realistically produce individually. Councils can then use those national assets locally through their websites or events, through your newsletters and community communications, through community networks and waste minimisation activities. So it's really helpful that residents receive consistent and recognisable messaging, while councils can retain the ability to decide how actively you want to participate. And we know for councils of your size, it can be really challenging with the staffing and resources that you have available. So even if you're not able to run lots of activities, you've still got that kind of backbone of the national platform to fall back on. So the results, yep.
Sophie, nice. Have you got slides accompanying what you're speaking? Because we can't see anything yet. Or are they coming?
Oh, you should be able to, sorry, I just assumed you could see. Have you not been able to see any of these slides?
No.
No, not so far.
Okay.
We're doing a long introduction.
We can see
Oh, my bad.
Great.
Oh gosh, thank you for jumping in there. It's saying that it's sharing, so let me just stop sharing.
Amy can share for you if you need her to, if you let her know what slide number you're up to.
Let me just do that again, because you definitely should have been able to see that. Okay, let me just go. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just give you I mean, these are the slides we've been through: national network, locally activating. And this slide gives you a sense of what that collective investment has produced. So over the past 3 years, we've delivered campaigns addressing the main household behaviours that lead to food waste. And we've helped people use leftovers, understand date labels, plan meals, organise their fridges, and really kind of adopt some fabulous food saving habits. So the campaigns have used a mix of approaches, including national advertising, challenges, quizzes, ready to use sort of community engagement activities, and digital content. And they all come wrapped up in a really helpful toolkit for not just council staff to use, but you can also push it out to local community groups so they can jump on board as well. And all of the campaigns have had this kind of same purpose at their heart. So turning a large environmental problem into simple actions people can take at home. So the campaigns are sort of the visible part of the program, but there is a much larger platform behind them. So we maintain the national website, we publish new recipes and storage advice, we review the research and evidence that's coming through, and then develop downloadable tools. We have a subscriber newsletter that goes out monthly and near daily content across our social media channels. We've also had fabulous uptake from the media, and obviously wonderful support from councils across the country. And that means when someone wants to know, you know, what is a best before date, or how to store a particular ingredient, or what to cook with the leftovers that they have in their fridge, there's a really trusted national source available. So the Love Food Hate Waste licence really helps keep this engine room operating, and the advice accurate and current. So over the past 3 years, we've really increased the program's national visibility. So now around 1 in 4 Kiwis are aware of Love Food Hate Waste. Awareness alone is not behaviour change though, but it is a really essential first step. So food waste habits are built over time, and people need to encounter clear and consistent messaging before those actions become normal. That national website now receives over 700,000 visits a year, and people aren't just viewing content, they're completing those quizzes, they're downloading those resources and actively looking for advice. And this gives councils a substantial public resource that they can direct residents towards, rather than having to create and continuously update that information on your own websites. We've built a community of over 120,000 people who either follow us on social media or subscribe to our monthly comms. And that ongoing relationship is really important, because behaviour change really happens after just one campaign or one-off event. So those channels allow us to keep reinforcing those same food-saving behaviours in different ways and at relevant times of the year. So your investment isn't just funding kind of one-off communications or campaigns, it's helping build an engaged national audience that can be activated over and over again. And we're seeing that our reach is useful, but more importantly, the campaigns are driving measurable impact. So our campaigns evaluations show that participants aren't simply viewing the content, but they are adopting those behaviours. The campaigns have also helped us double that subscriber base, again, so we can reinforce those behaviours and drive that lasting change. Oh, whoopsie. And we're also seeing shifts nationally. So in 2023 to 2025, Ministry for the Environment ran a national behavioural monitoring survey to understand and track changes in people's attitudes, awareness, and behaviours around waste minimisation. And this year, as part of our project evaluation, we reran the food waste modules again, and we continue to see shifts in the right direction. So that survey is a nationally representative survey of 1,000 people, and compared with 2024, more people are using an Eat Me First shelf, more meal planning, more and more comfortable eating food past its best before dates, and we've seen understanding of date labels increase. And at the same time, the proportion of people reporting that leftovers are not eaten has fallen by 9 percentage points. So some fabulous results. We can't say Love Food Hate Waste is solely responsible for that national change. However, the direction of that change closely reflects the behaviours that our campaigns and councils have been repeatedly promoting. So within that kind of national sample of those that were aware of Love Food Hate Waste, 60% say they're throwing away less food as a direct result of hearing from us, with 26% saying a lot less. So this is really important because it connects that awareness of the program with reported behaviour change, rather than just sort of simply recognising a logo. We see similar findings among our subscribers. 64% say Love Food Hate Waste has influenced them to throw away less food. And that influence is stronger with our new subscribers. So we can see when they come into the community, and they really do have a jump in their activity, and it really does have a strong impact early on. And then we're seeing them maintain those behaviours. So a high percentage of subscribers report they're taking direct action around those behaviours that we're championing. And it does have a tangible impact. So subscribers reported reducing their weekly food waste by an average of 17.6%. So based on our 2018 bin audits, where we measured the amount of food waste in curbside bins, it equates to just shy of 30 kgs of food waste per subscriber per year. Actually, I'll pause there for any questions on the data before I kind of jump into what we're offering in terms of the license and how you might use it.
Any questions from anyone?
Sad. In fact, I'd never heard you guys until this morning. I live rurally and I don't, we observe all those things anyway and have pigs for waste and that sort of territory. So it's reasonably straightforward, but it's interesting and looks pretty damn successful. So well done.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Well, that's that links nicely to my next slide, because we are, that we keep the engine room running and deliver these campaigns through the support of councils. So we are asking you to invest in us for the next 3 years. So we offer a Love Food Hate Waste license. It's $771 per year. And for that amount, you're not just sort of purchasing that one-off campaign or one-off set of resources. It's really helping to sustain that national program and while receiving access to the brands and those resources and the various things I'll talk to in the next few slides. I'd say it's worth noting Wastemans operates Love Food Hate Waste on a cost recovery basis, so it's not for profit. So our ability to reduce fees is limited. I know that you guys are interested in working with other district councils in your region, and we definitely see significant value in the Wairarapa district councils all participating. A coordinated regional approach would really provide residents with consistent, repeated messaging across those council boundaries, and strengthening the recognition of campaigns and the brand, and really influencing household behaviour. So I know Mandy and Rachel are looking into this. If all three Wairarapa councils take on a license, we can offer a 10% discount. I know that's not a lot, but it is we think it's really great value for money in itself. So what do you get for that license? As I said before, it keeps that engine room running. That won't be just used by your residents. We know waste educators and initiatives actively use the Love Food Hate Waste website for their content, along with student groups, students and teachers. We've seen some really fabulous collaborations with food rescue organisations and budgeting services, again, directing people to our resources. So they might be other initiatives that you're also funding that we can help support. So it doesn't just keep that engine room running, but it can be a really practical, relatively low cost action within your waste minimisation and management plan. So food waste is really challenging because most of the decisions that create or prevent it happen privately in people's homes. And it's really hard, like councils can't directly control those decisions. But what you can do is make the desired behaviour easier by providing trusted advice, useful tools and repeated prompts. And that the licence provides an established mechanism for doing that. So what that can look like in practice is activating locally. You can really use the program at whatever level is realistic for available staff. At its most active, you might consider having Love Food Hate Waste community grants or running local events. We have fabulous event kits and resources available. And a huge benefit of the program is that the message comes from an impartial household food waste brand. So you might have an event at a local market or food show under the Love Food Hate Waste banner, and more people are likely to come and have a chat with you versus if you were under the council branding. They might either avoid you or might come have a chat with you about things that things that aren't about reducing food waste. So it just gives you an impartial and way in to speak with the community in a different tone of voice. A simpler form of activating is just simply through your council website. So you don't need to develop or maintain a large library of food waste information. You can simply direct people to the national platform. As part of the licence, we also offer an annual website review so we can make sure local information is current and consistent and aligned with national evidence and messaging. You can also use the resources internally. So staff engagement can be a really, really simple and powerful way to sort of walk the talk inside council. But you can also share online, through your digital channels that you guys are taking action internally. So really demonstrates that you're taking things seriously, and as I say, walking the talk. But that license also gives you access to the team. So we have expertise and kind of all that evidence base. So if you are looking to run local activities, we can act as a sounding board or just signpost other resources that are available. So for smaller councils like yourselves, it can be really, really valuable. We also have a quarterly hui where we'll share new research or get other councils to share what they're doing in this space, again, to try and help councils not kind of start from scratch and really make the most of each other's experience, tools and resources. So that's everything at a glance. I won't sort of go through it again, but yeah, keen to hear your thoughts or take any questions. Really hoping that you can kind of see the value in that $771 a year, because yeah, it definitely can make a world of difference, and it's super important we help our communities save money and build resilience in the home, but also keep that food waste out of landfill.
Thank you, Sophie. Great presentation. Very vibrant. Do we have any further questions?
Can we amalgamate the license?
I was going to say.
Again, there was the 10% discount for 3.
Yes, so Masterton and Carterton are already on the program.
Right.
And so with us wanting to join, we have asked Sophie specifically what she can come up with, and that is the offer, because it's the renewal period time, isn't it, Mandy?
So we have the
Beginning of this next 3-year subscription. So that's the offer that's on the table. And so I think that consistent messaging, I think it's also actually about high resilience for our communities. For me, it's not actually just the waste aspect, it's actually supporting people to use their food to the best possible stretch possible as well. Mandy, you're going to correct me if I say anything wrong, but this would not come out of ratepayers' money. It would be funded from the Waste Levy Fund, which allows for educative activities like this. We can, and again, it's that reaching out to the community groups that we have in the high resilience space and offering this as a really positive way of supporting them in the work that they're doing and providing tools to consumers. So that's right, isn't it? That we can kind of take this on pretty easily, and it's out of that Waste Levy Fund, which is to support waste minimisation activity. Okay.
That's right. Yep.
Well, so Sophia, I might just thank you again for your presentation and taking the time to be with us today. And can I ask for a mover to receive the presentation, Love Food, Hate Waste?
Happily move that. It was a good presentation. It was information and well done.
Thank you, Councillor Isaacs. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Watson. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The motion is carried. All right, well, thank you, Sophie. We'll let you get on with your day. Many thanks.
Awesome. Lovely to see you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
chooks.
What do you guys think of this? Oh, they're not.
Community chooks.
Community too.
So, Stefan, can I just ask for your advice on that? Can we just leave that with Mandy as an operational decision?
I mean, if Mandy's supportive, we can just get it done.
Yes.
I mean, I can purchase it with information, but capacity wise, I can't do anything capacity wise with it.
That was what I was going to ask you, sort of kind of how would it fit in what you're doing here?
As an educational person, waste education person across the 3 councils, that would go out to schools and businesses and promote all this sort of educational stuff. I just don't have one of those anymore, so.
Even I guess we pay it on the website, it would be still a positive thing, like that. It's yeah, sort of
Isn't worth purchasing just to use it in that light touch manner while we're under resourced? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I'd like to do is be able to then have, I mean, that would give me an active thing that I can work with communities with, and it's a positive offering from council to support them. So I'm kind of slowly reaching out and developing networks with, you know, with Kai Eka, and that's another little project I'm working on. But this, I've kind of been waiting for this to happen to start to be able to engage a bit more strongly.
It looked like an amazing resource, and it's very reasonably priced actually. And if our other councils are already using the brand, then
there's a couple of zeros on the end, don't you say?
Something we should be doing. Just with that caveat that it's going to be light touch. Start.
Yeah, appreciate the constraints on Mandy's time. And okay, all right, well, that brings us to a close unless there's any more.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your counsel.
Thank you. I'd like to invite you to join with me. The closing karakia is on the wall behind you or on page or something. I'll be the last page.
Probably, here we go.
Your last page.
Page 25.
Right, thank you. In closing with the karakia whakamūtanga, kia karakia tātou, tua mutu, mō tēnei wā, manaketia mai mātou katoa, o mātou hoa, mātou whānau, ai o he te aorangi. Kia ora. Thank you all for your time and